Here we go. Okay, well, thank you for coming tonight. Um, and more people are coming in. Great. My name is Karen Leonard, and I am the program manager for education technology and micro credentials at the Oklahoma State Department of Education. Um, Please, as we go through this tonight, I really want to make sure that if you have questions, please feel free to unmute and ask those questions or put them in the slide deck. I just put a link to the slide deck in there. And as we go through the evening, you'll find out that my slide decks are very interactive. Everything I share is linked right there so that you don't have to go out and look around. And okay, let's learn about AI. Tonight, we're going to just cover a little basic introduction on what in the world is AI, learn about some tools and resources, how AI can be implemented in the K-12 classroom, ethical considerations for using AI, and also preparing for the future with AI. Okay, so we're going to start very basic. And if you've heard me talk all about AI, I always include these first few slides so that we're all in the same mindset. First of all, Oklahoma did produce guidance on using AI in Oklahoma K-12 schools. We were the 11th in the state, and right now I'm in the process of revising this guidance. If you have any suggestions or questions and things that you think may need to be in this guidance, please, I'm going to email you all tomorrow and just reply back. And hopefully we can get this updated because as with educational technology or technology of any kind, nothing is stagnant. There's always new things going on. And I would like to be able to provide support and guidance to you with the most up-to-date information. Okay, I did not think AI had been as infused in my life until I started to really look around my house. I'm a person that I've only lived in Oklahoma for 6 years. Waze is my best friend. I would get lost without it. You know, it's interactive. It tells me where there's construction or an accident. And Siri and Alexa just kind of command my life. Yeah, I have one of those in the background that's going to talk to me. We use it, and you know, if you do not use any of those, if you watch Netflix or anything, AI is taking what you watched and producing ideas and lists of things. Amazon, it's everywhere. And the thing we have to think about is it's not going to go away. Sometimes I think that's good, sometimes I think that's bad, but this is a part of our life. This is probably one of the most life-changing things that has happened, maybe honestly, since electricity. So we're at the start of some exciting new changes. So I'm going to start off by defining what AI is, so you know how we can talk about using it. And I would say that artificial intelligence is defined as when computers and machines do things that would typically require human intelligence. It is based upon a data set. AI tools do not just automatically know everything. Just like humans do, they have to learn that information. And just like our children do, we have to provide it with the information that helps it grow and know that information. And it can create things. So everything I'm talking about tonight is going to be generative AI. It creates things and can complete tasks for us. It also learns and improves with practice. I think I get goosebumps every time I think about this. The AI that we have today is the least intelligent AI we will ever have. Um, and that's just kind of scary and shocking and exciting. It does study human language and it knows how to interact with us. And it's been around for a long time. If you look back in like the 1950s, our government was working on AI, obviously not the kind we have now. And if any of you are Jeopardy watchers, back in the 1980s, an AI tool, IBM's Watson, actually played against some of the best Jeopardy winners and won. So it's been around, but it wasn't until November of 2022 when ChatGPT was released to the public that everyone became acquainted with or had heard of AI. So I'm going to talk with ChatGPT. One thing people do all the time is ChatGPT is just one of many, many AI tools. It is the first one that became, known to the public. Just so you know, the GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So it is pre-trained on information, the data. It generates that data into something new and transforms it. And really, it was one of the first well-known AI assistants. It can interact with you, ask questions, answer questions. And when it first came out in 2022, I think it was only current up to 2019. Now, I wouldn't think it's up to date within the most recent hour, but I don't know. I mean, it would be really interesting to see just because it just keeps building and building on its knowledge base. But although ChatGPT is great, I highly recommend that when you're using tools, probably more as an educator, you look at some of the other tools that are available. I never use just one tool. I normally use multiple tools, and it kind of allows me to check back and forth, maybe for some bias or just to get additional ideas. Some of the things I like, Google Gemini. Google Gemini just has I can even converse with Gemini on my phone and just have a conversation back and forth. It's pretty exciting, the app. Something like Perplexity, I like it because it will actually provide citations of where it collected the information, because we're always wondering, is it valid? Is it true? Well, you're able to click on those references and see if it's valid or true. I know many of your schools hopefully haven't blocked everything, but if you're a Microsoft school, you may have access to Microsoft Copilot, but not to Google Gemini. I know that every school district has different preferences. A lot of it's due to age restrictions and privacy and settings and everything. But I encourage you to, again, experiment with multiple tools when you're at home, if nothing else. All of these tools are built on a large language model. So basically, it's fed a lot of information. And if I were to give you the phrase, after it rained, the street was, in your mind, you're probably able to pull out some of the high probability words that would come next, like wet, slippery, flooded. That's kind of what the large language models do. They kind of predict and provide you ideas of what would make sense next. And it's with natural language processing. So it's not spitting it out in computer language. It's actually spitting it out in the language that is like what you and I use every day, whether that's English, Spanish, Vietnamese, whatever. And, kind of think like some of your predictive text that you see on the phone, or when you're typing in Word or Google. All of that is with natural language processing. Okay, so I think it's really important that we all have an understanding of how AI works. And, with everything in life, there are positives and there are negatives. I'd like to introduce you to Sophie. She is an AI tool. There's lots of different Sophies out there, but I really like this one. She has come so very far. But I'm going to her face is linked in the slide deck, so you're able to share this with students or other people. I am going to be able, she can speak up to 4 different languages. I'm going to click down in the bottom corner and I'm going to actually have a conversation with Sophie. I've enabled my
Hello.
microphone.
I've got more updates for you now. I'm connected to Llama 3.1 running on one of the fastest inferencing engines in the world.
Sophie, what is the weather like right now in Edmond, Oklahoma?
I'm a digital human. I don't have real-time access to current weather conditions. However, I can suggest checking online weather websites or apps like AccuWeather or Dark Sky for the latest updates on Edmond, Oklahoma's weather.
Can you tell me what the fifth president of the United States was? Who was that president?
The fifth president of the United States was James Monroe.
Okay, so I am going to close her out now and just share that. First of all, some of our younger learners might look at that, and there does become that confusion on reality versus AI generated. And I'm going to actually talk about that more in a future session. I think one of the reasons I wanted to bring your attention to that is we know that many of our students have difficulties building relationships with people. I know my own children, if I ask them to make a phone call, they're not going to want to make a phone call. They'd rather text. When my son was in middle school, he came up to dinner one night and said, "Hey, Mom, my friend in Chicago." And I'm like, "Connor, we live in Atlanta. We've never been to Chicago." And here he was on his Xbox and was doing Xbox Live with people that he didn't know. And it really shocked me as a parent and an educator. So now, instead of just communicating through text, we have interactive AI um, people models that can actually hold some conversations. And even if we don't actually allow our students to use AI, we do have to ensure that they're obtaining some AI literacy, and that might be making them aware of some of these tools and showing them that they're limited. If you notice, she couldn't tell me the exact information here, but she could provide me some history. So there's lots of different AI tools out there. I said that all of these AI tools are trained on a data set. And, there are districts I know up in the Tulsa area, and I don't know if there are any in the OKC area, where the district has built its own AI model, and they've only put information into that tool that they want their students to be able to access. So that would be called a closed AI model. Other than that, many of the other ones that we use, Gemini, I think Gemini can be have settings changes so that only certain information can be accessed by students. But we do need to make sure that students and us as users are aware that depending upon what data has been imported into the AI tool, it could be skewed. It could have gaps in information. It could be biased. Again, that's why I said I like to use multiple AI tools. And sometimes when I'm playing, I'll just sit down and I'll try to put maybe controversial topics or misinformation into a tool just to see what kind of response it gives me back. I'm kind of like testing it to see, and each one reacts a little differently. Um, Machine learning is how these tools really learn. If you work with students, this code.org activity is a great activity because you're actually seeing the training process. Each time this little AI tool will be showing you a picture and you have to tell it, is it a fish or is it not a fish? And the AI tool will begin to identify aspects of the fish that all fish have in common: fins, tail, eyes. And so after you go through this, maybe about 20 or 30 times, it's going to start to say, "Oh, I think this is a fish," and you're going to tell it if it's right or not. So that's one way we can see how it can learn, but it's also a good way of us seeing maybe some bias or misinformation because what if I would mistrain this AI tool and tell it that this is a fish, but this is not? So then instead of every time it sees fins and a tail and eyes, it's going to learn that that is not a fish according to the way I've trained it. And that just kind of gives us a little bit of an idea on how some of these AI tools work and learn. Okay, so AI in education. The number one concern everyone has, it seems, when talking about AI is student ethics and academic integrity. And yes, I am old. I'm back in the mimeograph days. I know that many people have issues even now with calculators in education. I know that we wouldn't want our students to immediately jump to a calculator. They have to know all the processes behind multiplication, addition, subtraction, all of that before they're able to use a tool that helps them. That's kind of the way that I would consider an AI tool. Um, but as our world changes, we have to make changes in education as well. And so many people say, what can I do to ensure that my students are not cheating? We can't say plagiarizing because it's not really plagiarizing someone else's work. So people often ask, what AI plagiarism or AI detector tools can I use? And I have to tell you, there have been so many discussions. I'm going to say that maybe about 85% of things that are run through AI detector tools are incorrectly labeled. And so that right there is a big red flag to me. Um, Normally it's false positives. I was actually even just reading an article about this today. The people that often are targeted as misusing or using AI are often our English language learners, and sometimes some of those students that are having maybe issues. My daughters both have dyslexia, and I know that their writing patterns would probably be flagged by an AI detector. And especially think about those students that are trying really hard and they're incorrectly or falsely accused of using an AI tool. And that could really, break down their academic future for them. Many higher learning educational, universities have already turned those off. And I thought it was very interesting that even OpenAI, who created ChatGPT, shut their AI detector tools off because they just said it's so challenging to see if it's human corrected or human created or AI created. And that's just because our AI tools are just constantly evolving and changing, and the detectors can't keep up with that. So they say that, we can't continue to do that. So what could we do? Well, this is linked right here and might be something to play with. Again, not end all be all, but you could try copying and pasting some information in here and see if the text was written by a human or AI. I think I would probably mess with it a lot before I would ever consider using that. And I know now that students are using AI sometimes to write something, and then they will put it back into the AI tool and say, rewrite this so it sounds like a human wrote it. So, I mean, our students are pretty darn smart in the ways that they try to get around it. I think you might be intrigued to know that out of the majority of students that I've spoken with, most are afraid to use AI tools because they're afraid of getting in trouble. AI detectors, think of like baking a cake. Before you put the cake together, you've got your flour, your eggs, your sugar. But once all that's mixed together into a cake, you can't pull those individual parts back out again. And that is, again, part of the issue with AI detectors. You just can't really pull out what's human and what's the tool. Um, so, trying to think proactively, I've spoken with several people at schools and universities. Some people will take a student's paper and sit down with the student and say, hey, talk to me about this. They might make a quiz or some type of assessment over the content if they don't believe that the student is actually the creator of that material. I think normally if you're really talking to your students and you know that who they are, we can determine if it's really their information or not. We can also go through and you notice if you are looking in maybe the version history of Google Docs, you can see maybe all of a sudden they've only been in there one day and it was all dumped in there, or draft back is a Google Chrome extension. And so is revision history. All of these images are actually linked to these tools. And you can see if somebody just copied and pasted everything into a document. So, that's kind of interesting. You can also use Brisk to inspect writing. I know you don't have a chance to probably experiment a lot, but instead of just automatically assuming, even some of the well-known companies that may also check for plagiarism, their tools are not, I think I'd rather give students the benefit of the doubt and talk to them than just flat out accuse them of using an AI tool. It would also be good if you have other teachers that you work with and or maybe your admin, and really sit down and analyze, what do we consider cheating with AI? Is it okay to use AI to brainstorm ideas for a paper? Or is it okay to use AI for feedback on style and tone? Is it okay to write the paper by yourself with no help from AI? Think of our students, and as they travel from one classroom to another, if they're getting mixed signals, it's really hard for them to keep up with, well, this teacher allows me to use it and this teacher doesn't. So that I think is another way when students might be using it because they just are confused as to who will allow what. So based upon that, I would recommend using something like an AI acceptable use rating scale. And North Carolina Department of Education had this, and I modified it. You are welcome to download it and modify as you see fit. Um, I am going to pause 1 second, and I've kind of jumped ahead to students using AI tools. We know they're going to use it. First of all, we always have to ensure that it's age appropriate. We need to check it. If it's something that you're asking them to use, ensure that you've communicated with your IT department, with your admin. We can't just jump into anything. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. But let's say that your district or your school has come to an agreement that there is this AI tool that students can use. I admit I use AI all the time. Um, I think many of you might start to get that way. And how do we say it's fair for us to use it and not students? So by using an AI acceptable use rating scale, you talk through this with maybe late middle school, your high school students, and say, there are times that it is appropriate for you to use an AI tool, and there are other times when it is not. And we go through this, and this would hang on the wall and say, maybe for this assignment today, we are talking level 0. You are not to use AI at all. You talk through what is the full description of that, and is there any disclosure? But maybe for tomorrow's assignment, they may be able to use AI assisted editing. And we talk about exactly what that usage entails. And as with using any resources, magazines, journals, we have to disclose when we've taken information from another source. So this is ensuring that students know how to disclose the use of AI. They understand that there's sometimes, man, they can use it completely because you're trying to get them to brainstorm and think. I also want to share that while many people consider the use of AI maybe like dumbing down education, it's giving them all the answers. If you're using AI effectively, it takes a lot to process and think critically in order to make that tool provide you with the output that you need. So actually, sometimes your students might be doing more critical thinking than they would if they were just doing this on their own. Another thing that I firmly believe in is I never take anything just from an AI tool and run with it. Okay, there should be a human AI human loop in everything that you're using with an AI tool. The human is the person that tells that tool what you want it to do. The tool generates the output and shares it with the human, and I never ever just take it and run. I make it mine. Maybe I'm using three different tools. I'm putting the same prompt into each tool. I'm pulling those three outputs together, and I'm like, I like that sentence there and that idea there, but it doesn't have my voice. I think we have to ensure that students understand. I would consider that cheating. If they just take it directly from there and submit it as their work, that's not their work. But I mean, think even Grammarly. Grammarly checks grammar and helps promote better writing skills. AI is a form of, I mean, Grammarly is a form of AI. So um, we're going to see that this is just going to infuse not only the education system, but the world. And we have to ensure that our students understand how to use it appropriately and safely. As with anything, we always have to outweigh the benefits and the risks. Like I said, you have to examine each and every tool and as a school or as a district, determine what is and is not acceptable. So here comes the big picture. We know that Oklahoma is not very competitive right now in terms of the nation in education. And I do a lot of work with other state departments as well as some international organizations related to AI. And I can tell you, students are using it. They're using it across the world, across the country. I want to ensure that our Oklahoma students are prepared to be competitive and to be sufficient and to be prepared for the future. So think, let's say a 10-year-old probably started fifth grade this year, and hopefully they would graduate from high school in 8 years, maybe graduate from college in 12. So graduating from college in 12, that would be about 2027, maybe. Where were you and what were you doing 12 years ago in 2013? What what were you doing? What tools did you? No one would have told me that I would be wearing a watch that has all kinds of tools built into it. I wouldn't have believed that we would have AI. So much has changed in our world since 2013. So let's jump ahead to 2037. We have no idea what our world will be like and how can we prepare our students by pulling back and not teaching them how to appropriately use AI. I like this. One presenter I saw recently shared this, and instead of using today glasses, we have to use tomorrow glasses. And we really have to view AI as an opportunity for learning and skill enhancement rather than just seeing it as a menace to traditional teaching methods or a gateway to student dishonesty and cheating. Um, it's not going away. If we're not effective in our instruction for using it, then our students probably will use it, maybe maliciously or inappropriately. Okay, so whenever you're using AI tools, we do have to tell it what to do, and that's considered a prompt. A prompt is just the text that provides instructions on what we want it to generate. And what I love about it is it does kind of teach students that there's iteration. You have to revise your input or prompt. So I'm going to jump out here real quick and I'm just going to use Google Gemini. And I'm going to go back here and I'm going to use this sample prompt. Create a lesson for teaching types of sentences. And I'm going to put that in here and look, in seconds, I have a lesson plan. It's giving me a grade level. It's giving me learning objectives. It's giving me materials. It's giving me a procedure with an introduction, even an amount of time. Guided practices. Here are examples I can use. Independent practice, review and assessment, differentiation for those who need support, for advanced learners. Here are some ideas for assessment. Here are some extension activities. Wow. Now, what if I don't like that? I could say, what would be another good lesson? And you know what? It's going to give me another idea. Okay, story sentencing or sequencing scramble. Every time it will give you something different, and each tool does something different. Now, think you may have emergency certified teachers in your schools that do not have the academic pedagogy instruction. What a great way for them to understand lesson plan creation and to help guide them as they're learning all the stuff that maybe you learned in college. But I'm not done yet. So now, prompt engineering is actually creating prompts that allow you to get that output that you desire. So I found a prompt acronym, and it is called PARTS, P-A-R-T-S. And when I'm using an AI tool, I ensure that I have these 5 parts in every prompt that I write. The first one, I have to identify my persona. Who am I? So it knows, am I a student? Am I a teacher? Am I a retired person? I don't know. Tell it who you are. I'm a middle school teacher. I'm an administrator. Then you have to tell it your aim. What is your objective? What is it going to provide for you? Maybe you want to brainstorm ideas for a unit. Maybe you want to create a report on maybe absences per month. And I'm going to pause here real quick and say, we do have to ensure that anytime we're using a tool like this, that we are not using any personally identifiable information. So student A, student B, but it can really do some great analysis of data. We have to tell it who the audience of this information will be. Is it 6th grade students? Is it parents of advanced math students? Is it your administration? It will form that output in the style that is best received by maybe each of these recipients. I have to tell it a theme, what kind of style, tone, anything else that I want it to add. So maybe I want it to be in formal voice or informal voice. Maybe I want it to be no longer than 50 words. Maybe I'm doing this for students and I want to add a pop culture reference. Maybe I want to be enthusiastic. Maybe I want to be stern. And then I have to tell it the structure. What kind of output actually do I want? Do I want it in bullet points? Do I want it with metaphors and analogies, graphs, quizzes, lesson plans, unit plans? I tell it, but if I don't tell it, it's just going to make assumptions. So using parts, I created a new prompt with the same basic information as last time, and I've color coded it. I'm a science teacher. I want a lesson plan for my sixth grade students. I included the actual Oklahoma academic standard that I wanted my students to learn. I want this lesson to cover two 60-minute class periods, and I would like it to create a chart to help my students understand this concept. So I'm going to go back into Gemini and I'm going to put in this updated um, prompt. And okay, it's giving me life science, sixth grade. It's giving my learning objectives that all relate back to the Oklahoma academic standards. It's giving me materials. It even is giving me a hook. Day one, I'm introducing cells and living versus non-living, defining terms, observing living things, wrap up. Here's day two, discussion. Oh, it made a chart for me, and I could export that to Sheets and, share that with students. I do, now I have differentiation specific to that grade level. Assessment, I could then ask it, could you create a multiple choice assessment based on this? Oops. Now, we know multiple choice is not the best way to assess our students, but oh, it went back and looked at my sentence types. And how many times have we struggled to come up with the extra answers, or it's all right there, and it gave me an answer key. Okay, so as an educator, your job is not going to go away. You are needed. Our students need those interactions with you, with their classmates. They need relationships. The goal of everything I'm sharing is to hopefully lighten the load for you so that you're able to spend more quality time with your students. A little bit more. Um, when it provides something, you can ask it clarifying questions like, do you need any more information? Or how confident are you in the response that you provided? What are some counter arguments to this view? Are there other opinions? I love the fact that another question that I would ask it might be, what are some common misconceptions students encounter when learning this? I think that's really good, maybe even for some of our newer teachers, because they may not have experienced trying to teach students double digit by double digit multiplication. This can give us some ideas of common misconceptions, so maybe we're better able to identify those misconceptions and promote students to go a different route in solving those problems. There are some wonderful tools out there. Most tools come with free and paid versions. As with everything technology related, things change quickly. I have created step-by-step guides for each of these tools that can at least teach you to log in and get initially started using these tools. I know that I am going to be doing a Magic School AI session in a few weeks. That's probably one of the easiest tools ever to use because so much of it is already built for an educator, and the fact that you don't have to create as specific prompts, because some of these tools you can put your academic standards in and say, unpack these standards. It will help you understand. I know computer science is one of those areas that you're being asked to maybe integrate in the classroom. And I know looking at the K5 or K3 standards, there might be terminology in there that just you may not be familiar with. These tools can help unpack those standards and help you see what you're supposed to be teaching and how you can, get ideas for lessons. Yes, this will be recorded and I will email it out to everyone tomorrow. I'm going to talk quick. One of my favorite tools is Notebook LM. I'm not sure it would be as great for students as it is for us. We know that we don't have time to maybe read some of the academic reading that we want to. You can pull PDFs and everything into Notebook LM. It's a free tool by Google. It will summarize the information. It can give you bullet points. It can, if I was a learner right now, I could have it create a study guide for me. It could put it in a timeline, and this is so cool. It will even take the contents of what I put in there, and it could even be like a YouTube link, and it will create about an 8-minute podcast that I can listen to, and it has two people discussing the information in that article as if it were a podcast. So I might really want to read up on AI in education. I may not have time. I can pull them up, it can summarize it, it can create a podcast, and I can listen to it instead of reading maybe 15, 20 pages. Just a pretty amazing tool. Implementation and best ideas or best practices. Again, we never want to use personally identifiable information. With that said, there are some wonderful tools out there that can help you maybe create IEPs or revise IEPs. And instead, you can put student X. And that way you're not, it's a great way, again, just to generate some ideas. Maybe it will give you ideas you hadn't thought of. So I often use it just as a thought partner. When I am using tools, I do typically tend to just go ahead and click. I figured they already have all of my data. I know that. But when you're asked to sign in with any of these, pay close attention to the bottom, the privacy policy and terms of service. If you're considering using this with students, make sure that you've read those. Hint, you can copy and paste maybe the privacy policy, put it into an AI tool and have it summarize for you. Because a lot of that's a lot of legal terminology that maybe I just don't have the time to do. If there's something concerning, I mean, you make sure you've read it, but that's just a quick way to access some of that information and get it in an understandable way. There's a tool called Poe, and it's linked right here. It can help you brainstorm behavior intervention ideas. So again, we don't mention students' names. I've got a 5th grade student who is displaying blank, blank, blank. We know that you can turn to your fellow teachers or your admin for ideas and suggestions sometimes. Sometimes they're just as overwhelmed as you are. And maybe you've tried their suggestions and your suggestions and you don't know where else to turn. This might be a tool that would be helpful. There are lots of prompt libraries if you're looking for some extensive ideas for using AI. Each of these are already linked there. You can open it up and it just gives you lots of different ideas. No one has to start from scratch. Okay, if you do nothing else, here is like the lowest hanging fruit you could use AI for. I am sure that many of you, if not all of you, have families in your school that not everyone is an English language speaker. And how many times do you need maybe those parents that would love to support their children, but they do not have the English language skills themselves? Okay, you can translate anything with an AI tool. And why not just send a copy out to a parent in the language that they commonly use and understand? I often say that, again, I never take what it gives me the first time. So I would write my email or newsletter in English first and ensure I have everything there. I would copy and paste it and maybe put it in ChatGPT and say, translate into Vietnamese. and it gives me this output in Vietnamese. And I'm like, great, how do I understand if that's true or not? I can copy and paste the Vietnamese output and maybe put it in Gemini and Copilot and ask it to translate it back to English and see if any of the context is lost. I know I just used three tools, but I'm telling you that in the course of 5 minutes, I could translate it and translate it back and see if there's any information lost. And what a great way to connect with those families that really want to support their children, but may not have the skills or the understanding. And boy, this could be a huge game changer right there. Lots of other ideas. It can summarize, it can create outlines, benchmarks for new teachers, help you write newsletters, can create templates, brainstorm, translate. Each of these are actually links that can help you understand bullet point list of key points from something. Rewrite a text. Many of you, again, could use this. Copy and paste it in. This is not students using the tool. You've got students that maybe you're in a 7th grade science class. Some read at a 3rd grade level, some read at a 12th grade level. You can copy and paste content and recreate that content at a 12th grade reading level and at a 3rd grade reading level. They're all learning the same content. They're able to have discussions about that, but it's personalized. And how many years have we learned? You hear we've got to personalize instruction. And you're like, but there's only one of me. Now, these tools can help us personalize instruction, rewrite text in a different style, create comprehension questions and answers, um, writing prompts, generate story elements. Um, if you're a writing instructor and you're trying to show them an exemplar model and maybe an example of something that you don't want them to write, um, before you may have used previous students' writing samples. Now you can tell it, here's my students are going to be writing on this. Um, it will even create a rubric for you, but it will give you exemplar models and subpar models so you can kind of show students. Maybe you take something that is not grade level and provide that to the students, and they have to do the editing and revision to make it a stronger, better piece of writing. Flexi is a wonderful free tool. Students do not have to log into this, but if you've got students that are struggling with math and science content, this is great. You ask it how it can help you. It will provide you step-by-step explanation of how to do something. So like here, it's a math problem. How do I find the square root of pi? It shows me, but then it asks me, would you like to see another problem so you can solve it on your own? And I love that because this is something that students may be able to use at home. It would be something I'd probably share with parents and say, here's something you might be able to use with your students. Great free tool. Ethical considerations. We don't want students to overuse it, but it's not fair if we're not allowing them to use it. We have to find that middle of the road. Where is it right to use it and when is it not? We always have to evaluate any tools. Here is just a sample rubric that you could use or your IT team could use to try to vet some of these tools out there. Just some ideas. Another place to vet tools is if you've ever gone to Common Sense Media, they have a wonderful website. They've got great digital citizenship lessons. They also will rate media tools. And I can click on this right here and it will actually take me there. And it will be able to rate all of the risk assessments per tool. This wouldn't be my end all be all, but I would probably look there to see, does it have a low risk, medium risk, high risk? I know we're almost done. I'm getting there. Free trainings. Google Generative AI Educators is a 2-hour training. Super great. It's focused on education, provides lots of applicable ideas, and that one's great. Google AI Essentials is something that any resident of Oklahoma can take for free. Um, if you were to Google that, it cost you about $49. I believe this link should work. It's a combination project between Governor Stitt and Google. If you've got high school students that you think should know, your husband, your wife, your friends, anyone who wants to learn about Google, any Google training is good. And that one actually gives you a certificate. If you want to go a step more, there's an IBM AI fundamentals course. When you get to that point, just some suggestions. There are lots of resources available for using AI in the classroom. Teach AI Toolkit has lots of things. It's got great handouts for parents, guides. This is an international organization that is just creating lots of resources. Again, we have our AI guidance, and I know that I did not put that link in initially, but I'm going to put that here in the chat box. It's only 20 pages long. It's easy to read. It's got images. It's a great starting place. Maybe that's something that you share with your administrators or your teachers. And then last but not least, moving forward, I do have some additional webinars about an hour long. February 4th is the promises and perils of AI. What are some of the things we really need to be worried about and watch? And what are some of the amazing things it can do? February 18th is going to be all different kinds of AI tools. I've referenced some of them. I'm going to show you some benefits of each of the individual ones. And then the last 3 sessions are focusing solely on 3 free AI tools that have so many wonderful teacher capabilities already built in: Magic School, Brisk, Teaching, and Conmigo. So I'm going to put the slide deck link in here as well. I know that that was kind of quick. I hope that you've at least found one thing tonight that you could take and use maybe even tomorrow. I'm going to stop the recording, and then